by the chairperson for the purposes of determining the existence of a quorum at committee meetings. Public members shall be counted as members of the committee. Public members who attend any full board meeting shall not be counted for quorum purposes. And here's my concern about this, is that in my mind, you're either on the board or you're not. You've either applied and gone through the vetting process or you haven't. And I'm concerned that any given chairperson could appoint, an unlimited number of people with a particular special interest, and could really overwhelm a committee. Now, they can't vote at full board, but this could sway things in a way that to me is, it makes me uncomfortable. So
I'm definitely with you. I think it should be removed, and I think there's good reason why it doesn't appear on most bylaws.
I think this is easy. The definition of public member and the discretionary power to appoint them is in the charter, and we're subject to the charter. And the reason that all these community boards don't have anything about it is because it is what it is. So we've never had it in, many boards don't have it in, there's just no reason to have it. So I wouldn't spend a lot of time on it. I think we just ought to delete it and move on.
Great, excellent. Okay. Max, do you have a view on this?
I beg your pardon?
This is here, actually.
Sid, Max, do you have a view on this?
Oh, I said I agree.
Okay, great. All right. So
I just want to point out that I printed out the last version that you sent me of the BP bylaw so that I would be on the same page with you, but mine just doesn't come out quite the same way. So, mine starts on page 5 and continues on page 6, and it's like that throughout for whatever reason.
So are you not comfortable with my screen sharing abilities, Barb?
No, I'm fine. I have it also in front of me. It doesn't really matter. I just wanted, as you always say, start on the top of page 6. And okay. Others have that same issue.
Susan,
Yes.
if I may, I sent you a note saying, when you sent us the latest version of up to where we were, and I reread it, and there were I had a couple of.
Yeah, sure. Let's go through them.
So if you want to go through them quickly. All right, the first
sure.
one
Start
was
at the top.
on, I made a list. The first one was on page 7.
Okay.
Under board meetings. And it was 3.3, I guess.
3.3.
On page 7.
3.3.
Yeah.
For you, Laura?
No, it wasn't quorum. It was page 7. Oh, I'm sorry. Board meetings.
Board meetings, right?
Okay. So did we actually vote on number 3 there? Or
The quorum at meetings is essential whether in person or virtual?
yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Because first of all, I don't think we need it. I mean, decorum is decorum. And secondly, I'm uncomfortable with a reference to virtual, since virtual is only a temporary condition, and these are permanent bylaws. And it to me, it implies somehow that virtual is a permanent condition. So
Okay, so
I don't think we need number 3.
I don't either. Actually.
I mean,
well, let me, okay, okay, guys, one at a time. Okay, one at a time. Jay, your first point is well taken. It's a separate topic I wanted to bring up about whether or not how we have to address the issue of Zoom. I'm very aware that you're not in favor of Zoom, but part of the reason for updating the bylaws right now is because we've now had 2 years of Zoom, and we might well again have that. We need to have some provisions in place for when and if we ever get back to this state of affairs, because we've now had it for 2 years.
Well,
but your point, hold on.
I just
hold on.
note that.
Wait, please, wait. But your point is well taken. So I'm changing it to decorum at meetings is essential. However, I do feel strongly that decorum at meetings is essential. I mean, that it should be specifically said.
Well, okay, I mean, it's.
When wouldn't it be essential?
Yeah.
Anybody of, that's meeting formally. I mean, it's just is taken for granted. And if somebody's acting out, it's the chair's responsibility to say, you know, leave the meeting or get rid of them.
Well, you would think that that it'd be as obvious and essential to be respectful and collegial, but we have that in the bylaws. And there are occasions where, unfortunately, I've had to say to somebody, you're in violation of clause number blah, blah, because you're not being respectful and collegial. We took our time to do a separate best practices of, you know, Zoom meetings and best practices of this or that. And decorum was something we spend a lot of time talking about because we have a lack of it at times. So I think this is a really safe and easy thing to add. I don't see how it hurts anything.
That's, I mean, it's harmless, so.
Why don't we just put in the word decorum in number 2? You know?
Members shall not engage in private discourse or commit any other act tending to distract the attention of the board from the business before it. When speaking or debating, members shall confine their remarks. But this isn't avoiding negative personal comments. Okay, I'll take it out.
And then you could add it with decorum. Decorum is essential. You know?
Well, okay. Let's try to see a difference.
You know, if you want, Susan, if you feel strongly on, yeah, I would put that phrase at the beginning of number 2 rather than at the end.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good too.
Okie dokie, artichoke. Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
that was
what's
my
next?
first.
Okay.
The next had to do with page 7.3C, conflict of interest. And I know we and I'll get to more of that. In A, since the city rules, the conflict of interest board rules also define a conflict of interest with certain functions, chairmanships, voting on certain issues. The rules talk about direct or indirect financial interest, and the phrase they use is or other private interest. And I think that should be inserted there.
Right here?
Yeah, the member has a direct or indirect financial interest or other private interest,
Okay,
such matter.
okay. By the way, Jay, this is, you wrote this text.
Okay.
Okay.
I absolutely admit that in going back again sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, you get it.
Yeah.
You see, you know,
See?
on page 8,
Right,
number 4,
right.
no, that I guess. Well, this doesn't seem to make sense.
Good morning, early birds.
That is already in violation, that number 4.
Oh, good morning, Robert. I didn't see you there. It's hard when you're sharing and screen sharing to,
Are we on page 8?
yes.
Maybe go back. Maybe my note.
Which number is it?
It has to do with. I think you're still on page 7.
Now I'm on page 7. You said to go back. Here I'm on page 8. Which item number is it?
You know, I just jotted down page 8, 4 with a period, and you had deleted the phrase in person.
No member having a conflict of interest as to any matter on the meeting agenda may chair the
No,
meeting.
it's not that. Maybe it had to do with the proxy. Keep going on voting.
Okay.
There
Yeah,
it is.
4 in person. Okay.
I would put that back.
That one's really, I think the issue here, Jay, is I respectfully disagree with you because the discussion we had about this was that that the issue is no proxies are allowed. So once again, we've had 2 years of voting not in person, so you can't put in the, I don't think you can put in the bylaws, it's got to be in person, because then you've had 2 years of the governor having a state of emergency where you don't have in-person meetings. So that's,
Well, but that's, well, part of my concern is, and I admit that, I'm uncomfortable with anything that implies or references remote participation. But that being said, with the requirement to physically be present, I think being present at the virtual meeting falls under the definition of in person.
here's the thing. In the past 2 years, we've had a lot of extraordinary things happen on our board. For example, a chairperson stepping down midterm. I mean, that's not a normal state of occurrence. And so what we've done is, I think we've tried to build on those experiences to have the bylaws lay out how you handle these things when they happen. So the bylaws, in my opinion, should be flexible. It's kind of like a prenup agreement almost. It's like, well, you're getting married, you're not planning to get divorced, but if you do, here's how you divvy it all up. So
Okay,
by saying in person, it just muddies it, because
Yeah, but Susan, the problem with that is even if the end result is a hybrid, which I suspect that will be the most, where members have to be present and the public can participate remotely. If that's the ultimate compromise, if you will, everybody seems to, or the consensus is that if members are ever allowed to participate remotely, they will be able to participate in the discussion but not vote. And so
oh, I see where you're going. Okay, so
so that's why
okay,
second reason
okay.
why I would leave in person.
Okay, that's a different issue. I don't know what to do about that, because all this is addressing is the issue of proxy votes, which is what was, that was what this was about, was proxy votes, because, okay, you can't get the meeting in time. So I gave, like, just recently at steering, Blanche isn't here, but she called somebody, she called Mark Diller and she wanted to vote, but, Blanche wasn't at the meeting. She wasn't voting. She couldn't vote. So it's simply saying it's addressing the issue of proxy voting. It's not addressing the issue of whether or not you're there in person or in virtuality. I think we're going to have to come back and have a whole separate discussion about Zoom and how Zoom needs to be incorporated into the bylaws. So can we just set that aside for now and come back to that?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think that having less is more. I think that taking it to the nth degree and not allowing for any kind of issue like we are in right now is wrong.
Yeah, I kind of agree. But can we agree just to table that for now, Jay, and have it, as I said earlier, it's a bigger discussion about Zoom and how we have to accommodate the whole world of Zoom. And I know you don't like it. Let me tell you, I was looking forward to seeing everyone today, but I think we need to set that aside for now.
Well, okay, then I would just say that for the purpose of the version that we still have, you should leave it the way it is in the model.
Well, that's awkward to do, because the whole committee, the whole task force agreed on taking out in person. So I don't think we can go back now and just revise it.
And we have material that we need to get to today. We only have.
Okay,
So let's-
okay, leave it.
All right, what else do you have, Jay?
What did, I know we discussed the suspension of meetings in July and August.
Oh, yes.
The board has always, and I apologize because I really don't remember much of the rationale, but we always do meet in July. The model that we're working off says no meetings in July and August. I just think we should leave it the way we've always had it, which is August.
Yeah, so I took a look at the city charter, which, as you know, is not an easy thing to do. And
Yeah.
the city charter actually says no meetings in July and August.
I mean,
almost every other board.
No
has
other
a-
board meets in July, so.
yeah, I know. And as I recall, Barbara, you were very much in favor of not having.
Absolutely am. I think that,
All right, look, you
Three
can,
board members need.
Guys, one at a time, one at a time. Okay,
well, I mean, if the charter says July and August, then it's moot as
Yeah.
far as the bylaws, and the board has the discretion to call meetings if it wants to.
Yes.
So I don't think, we don't have to have a long discussion, just
Okay.
leave it the way it is.
Also, thank you. Also, we had a robust discussion about this way back when.
Yeah, I know we did.
Okay, so let's not relitigate. Okay, what else do you have?
On page 12, under attendance,
Okay,
I just want to make sure that we understand when we're talking about properly excused for the following reasons, if this somehow flows into leaves of absence. I read this as just a reason for excusing a member from a meeting.
I don't understand what you mean.
In other words, these reasons also in the it's actually in the acceptance letter that the borough president sends to you. It actually talks about leaves of absence, and it only allows for leaves of absence from the board for military service, jury duty, personal illness or death. It 1 to 5. It does not say that the board chairperson can grant a leave of absence.
This is not leave of absence, Jay. This is attendance at
I know
meetings.
that. I just want to make sure. I read it the way you're about to say, Susan, which is excused absences from a particular meeting.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah, this is about attendance. at meetings.
I was a little uncomfortable at its lack of specificity. In number B, since it refers to meeting for attendance, the implication is that this has nothing to do with leaves of absence. But
That's correct. Leave of absence.
wouldn't-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would be more comfortable if we put in A, board members shall be properly excused from a meeting.
Okay, great.
Just,
Done.
okay, it just makes it clear.
Yeah,
I
no problem.
appreciate it.
No problem. As we,
Okay,
as several people have said, with great flourish, when voting on a leave of absence, since we're not told the reason why the person has applied for the leave of absence, we can't really vote on whether or not it's appropriate.
I've always abstained
I know,
for that reason.
I guess it was you I was referring to. Anyway, yeah, so this is not about that. This is about meetings.
Okay, no, it's good.
Okay, what else?
All right, the next thing is a grammatical thing. On page 13,
What number?
I just have the quote. Go to it. It may be just one paragraph. It has to do with the members of the public registering to participate. Keep going. I don't
That's it.
see it. Is that it?
That's it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's number 12, and
Page
look
12?
at that
Page
sentence.
12?
Public session.
Okay,
It says a member of the public may speak at the public session if she co-secretaries. I
Ooh,
assume it
whoops.
means
Yep,
if he or she registers.
yes,
Or, yeah, it's just grammatical.
yes.
They left out what they're supposed to.
Thank you for catching that.
That's it.
Okay,
That was that one.
Okay. I appreciate the
On-
close read. Thank you.
Okay, on page 14, the officers of the board shall consist of, it's redundant. You don't need to say 2 vice chairpersons if you say a first and second vice chairperson.
Great.
I have
And
one
that-
more to add to that. On page 18.
Can you wait, Barbara, can you hold off until Jay's finished?
Oh, yeah, sure.
And my last comment was, we adopted language expanding on the current bylaws about the duties and responsibilities of people who have certain affiliations. And I don't see it. I think I don't recall where it is in the current bylaws, but we adopted language, and I just questioning where it's going to be.
Yeah, so I got your email about that and I wrote back to you. I couldn't find it either. How do we do a search on that? Max, it was a resolution that was passed, Jay says, a 6-0 vote on September 23rd, 2021, Jay?
Yes,
But would that have been just at the task force?
yes.
I mean, it had to be because it's 6-0. So,
And, we agree. I mean, there's always been in the current bylaws a paragraph on affiliations, if you're employed, et cetera, et cetera.
okay,
But-
why don't we make a note of this and you and I will work on it offline together, okay?
Yeah, it's just a question of inserting it.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay.
I made a note.
Okay, that's it.
Well,
That's the last of my
okay,
comments.
Barbara?
Yeah, we haven't gotten to this yet, but you might just make a note that under section 5, district manager and staff, my page 18, under district manager,
Right,
D, says the board should list to the largest extent possible the responsibilities that they would like to. And
wait,
then,
I'm sorry. Under B, the district manager shall have responsibility for processing service complaints, preside at meetings, should list
Sentence
as
is
large as
incomplete.
possible. Yes, go ahead. That's a dangling sentence there. Yeah, sure.
yeah,
How would you change it?
I think we should wait until we get there. Just make a note, like, that we need to do something.
Yeah, we'll recognize it, I think.
Yeah,
Okay, we'll see it when we see it. Okay, great.
yeah.
Okay. So what I did yesterday was I went through this document with a fine tooth comb and I cleaned up some of the formatting. There were a couple sections that, like there was a section where there was an F missing. So it went from like A, B, C, D, E, G. So I added that. I made the formatting more consistent and did a lot of other changes.
Page 1.
I'm not on a page, I'm just talking in general.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just saying, like, yesterday, without the rest of the group, I went through and I made sure that, for example, if it says VB, like that there was, the same, this kind of thing, it really annoys me. There's a space between here and here, or that these are all always bolded, that kind of thing. So I went through and I did that yesterday. And that's the version you're looking at. So I'm saying I made changes without anybody else watching. So if you want to go through and if you see any of those other kinds of changes, please do feel free to let me know the way you're doing right now, because in our current bylaws, we've got some typos and I just think there's no excuse for that. Okay. So the door is wide open. If you find stuff like that, please let me know. Okay.
Susan, don't go back just a slide. You got to eliminate vice chairpersons. In other words, this should read the officers of the board
Okay.
shall consist of a chairperson,
Got it.
chairperson, first and second vice
Okay.
chairperson. There you go.
Okay, thank you. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Thank you very much. So I just want to let you know that I've gone through and I've done that. And
Okay,
made sure the formatting's good. There's one section I couldn't fix, and I'll show you where that is. I think I might just have passed it. I'm sorry if you're getting seasick watching me scroll up and down.
that's all right.
And maybe Max, you can help with this before it goes to the full board. Here, there's a lot of dead space before officers, and I don't know how to fix that without wrecking the formatting. So one other interesting thing of note, big scroll up here, is that this is pretty cool. If you go to the table and you try to update this, you can actually update the whole table. So it makes sure the page numbers are correct, that the titles are correct for what we've got now. So I did that as well. Okay.
Okay,
So it's good news, Barbara. I'm starting to do some final cleanup. We're getting ready for the big dog and pony show. Okay. So start here. Where to start here? Okay.
there we go.
Okay. So
Nomination.
so we had finished this somewhat confusing section of the election committee. and let me read aloud here. The election committee shall be appointed by the board chairperson prior to the September board meeting. And then no member of the election committee may run for a board officer position during their time in the election committee. Sounds reasonable. So
Nominations.
nominations for officers. Individuals interested in being a board officer shall announce their interest at the regular monthly board meeting 1 month prior to the scheduled election. Candidates' names will be recorded and ballots will be shared with all board members prior to scheduled elections. I think we should be specific about when our elections are, and it shouldn't just be 1 month prior. So if our election is in November, they would have to announce their interest at the October meeting.
Yeah, I mean, it's implicit in the first sentence, so.
You
I
know,
mean, does this leave room for a candidate to come into the race later than the announcement in
Well,
October? I
how
don't
much
think
later?
so.
I mean,
No,
this is-
I think the way we've always done it is the nominations are done a month before, and then once the nominations are complete, we declare that nominations are closed.
right, so this
So-
is the same thing.
in my experience on the board, and Jay, maybe you can tell me if you remember the same thing. We did not have our nominations in October. We used to do it before the break, before we took off for the month of August, and then you come back and there'd be a new chair.
Oh,
give
wow.
the person
No,
time.
I don't think so, Barbara. I think we
No, Barbara, it started in.
no, I think we announced, we don't do it in October because the term starts November 1st. So we did the nominations in September.
All right, so then it's not.
The nominations in September.
I-
And maybe Max, you can go back and double check the dates, but I believe we do the nominations in September, the vote in October, and the person takes office November 1st.
That sounds right to me, but recognizing not all community boards are the same. My previous one was very different, but from conversations I've had at CV7, that sounds right.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is, but let's double check it. And then Susan, maybe you can insert the necessary
Yeah.
dates to
Okay, so
conform to that.
I'll work with Max on that, okay?
Yeah.
If
I
you're
mean,
okay with that.
it's not to say that campaigning doesn't begin before September, but that's a whole different issue.
Okay, election procedures. Elections of board officers may be conducted by signed ballot or through roll call vote. Do we want to have an option there for either one? I think it should just be signed ballot.
Well, once or twice we've done it by acclamation. So then where we don't, I mean,
I think you need a record of it. You need a written record of it that goes to the board office.
I would be in favor of taking off roll call vote. Can't imagine doing that.
I think it'd be
Yeah, I
more-
mean, if we get into trying to construct language for the situation where there's only one candidate, we'll really get into the weeds, so.
Yeah, let's just say election of board officers may be, will be conducted,
Shall be,
Shall
yeah,
be.
shall be.
conducted by signed ballot, voting by ballot.
So
Here's
then,
one
yeah, but
one other thing I wanted to mention to the group, if I
but
may.
then that language has to be changed
I will in a second, One other thing I was thinking about is when we present this to the full board, there are places here where there are just flat out grammatical errors. So
Yes.
my intention or my plan was to present this with any changes we've made in red so people can see very clearly what the changes are. But I don't think it's important to have like minute changes like formatting or grammatical corrections. It's just going to be exhausting.
Yeah,
So
I
you guys
agree.
okay with that? Like just big changes. Okay.
Yep.
I don't I don't know that I'd even leave it in red. I mean, people are required to, you should be reading the
I
bylaw.
would agree. Just present the final
Yeah,
product.
exactly, in black.
Really? Okay.
That's what I would do. Absolutely.
Susan, if I could just underscore your last point that,
And they'll have, then they'll nitpick it. So I don't think we should do that at all.
Okay, Bob, you had a question?
yes, no, I just want to underscore your last point that with respect to, it's not nitpicking, but the only way you can fix the spatial issue, which is a little disturbing visually sometimes, is by what we call kerning, that is the space between the characters, and line spacing, and that can get really out of hand. So it's the sort of thing that you just live with. And I think the trick is when I generate the copy is the headlines, you make sure that they go to the next page. And then and then in the PDF save, it'll stay there. Okay. But you're right. It really gets, when you get granular like that on these sort of things, it's time consuming, and then why? Okay.
And that's mechanical. If at some point after these are adopted, whether it's a year from now, if somebody can figure out a way to reformat it, then it can be done.
Well, no, guys, what I was saying was that I took it upon myself yesterday to go through it because I do a lot of copy editing professionally. So I just went through and I did that. And I just wanted to let you know, full disclosure, I did it. I didn't change anything material. I just addressed some formatting issues.
Okay, good.
But I didn't want it to seem like, one person went off with the ball and played around, unsupervised. That's all.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. So we've agreed to take out or through roll call vote. But I'm sorry, I want to say that I agree with you, Barbara and Jay, that presenting it to the full board all in black is probably better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Max, Bob, you have thoughts on that?
I agree. Especially, I think the whole thing should be in black, but my second choice would be to leave the grammatical errors and the spacing errors. We don't need to do those in red either, I think.
Okay.
I just want to add that I think for our records, we should definitely keep a copy of the redlining so that if we need to refer to it, if somebody complains about something, we can say, well, we didn't touch that. It's been like that from the very beginning.
Right.
I think that's a good idea.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. Okay. So voting by ballot. If the board chooses to elect board members by ballot, we're doing that. So each voting member must receive an individual ballot with their name and must sign the ballot after they make their vote. So we'll just take out the beginning part there. And I think I could take out voting by ballot and just say each.
No, I would, each voting member,
And we're not voting by roll call, so we can just take that out.
Right.
and since I've been on the board, I mean, we've had many elections, particularly for like vice chair and secretaries, where there's only been one candidate, and we still fill out the ballots.
Yes.
So that's fine.
I believe it needs to be part of the private record. So the candidates who receive the highest number of the votes shall be elected to that office, provided they receive a majority of the votes. If no candidate receives a majority, the top two candidates will have a runoff election, and the candidate who receives a majority shall be elected. If after a runoff with the top two candidates, neither candidate receives a majority of the vote, the board may continue to hold rounds of voting until we're all nauseous. Until one candidate receives a majority of the vote, or by a majority vote call for a new election for the unfilled position. Whether the vote is by ballot or the board must create. The board must create. Oops. Oh. The board must create a record listing each member's vote and make that record available to the public. Moving on. Special elections. If an officer position becomes vacant, nominations to fill the remaining time of the term shall be taken by the last constituted election committee at the next regularly scheduled board meeting. After nominations are taken, the election shall happen according to election rules in section 3 above. So we got to think carefully about whether or not this is what happened when Mark stepped down and we had a special election. Make sure we have this covered, because I actually found out that Mark was going to step down long before anybody else did, because he called me as chair of the bylaws task force to say, how do you interpret our bylaws on this? What do we do? So can we talk about this for a minute or two? So the position becomes vacant. There are nominations, but this doesn't talk about how you schedule the meeting.
I think that if someone has decided to resign, they need to do it as of a particular date. And that would define the date that the position becomes vacant. And if there's a gap, for example, if Mark wanted to resign on September 15th, and this would require nominations to come the next regularly scheduled board meeting. And I mean, we can't prevent somebody from resigning and there being a gap, then the first vice chairman would take over in the interim.
So the way this reads right now,
That's in the
let's say the
bylaw.
position becomes vacant in September. So in the October meeting, we'd have nominations, and in the November meeting, we'd have the election. So we'd have 2 months without a new chair.
We'd have
Well,
an acting chair because the
we
vice
have an
chair.
acting chair.
Okay. Okay, good enough. All right.
I
Before,
mean, not an acting chair. Well, it'd still be a vice chair, but the bylaw provide that in the absence of the chair, the vice chair takes over.
okay,
Still the vice chair.
okay. Now let me go back to, we'll stop sharing and go to a different document. Screen share. So this is feedback that I got at the last meeting. We discussed whether or not to have a treasurer and what the roles of the vice chair should be. And so I reached out to all the old, to I think 4 or 5 prior chairs. It was Mark Diller, Roberta Seamer, Shelley Fine, Ethel Sheffer, and Elizabeth Caputo, to ask, what their thoughts were on the vice chair issue that Beverly Donahue raised. And so this is the feedback I got from them all. So I put it into a document so you can read it. So from Shelley, yes, I think the duties of the vice chairperson needs to be spelled out since they are independently elected and should have leadership responsibilities. To represent the board chair as liaisons to specific committee chairs about agenda items for committee meetings and to provide any support they need, and to attend those committee meetings when there is a major issue or a controversial issue on the agenda, to assist in providing direction to and oversight of the district manager. And that one's interesting because that's the chair's responsibility, but this is to assist.
Yeah, that's not
To
good.
represent the chair at borough board meetings, district service cabinet meetings, and meetings with community agencies when the chair is unable to attend, or when the V-Day, I think it means vice chairperson, has expertise, or the second vice chair, on the meeting topics, to preside at full board and steering committee meetings in the absence of the chair, first vice chair, or second vice chair in the absence of the first vice chair, to attend executive committee meetings. Roberta had a different view. She said, when we wrote the bylaws about 10 years ago, we had 3 people on the task force who were past chairs and 1 current chair. At that time, everyone agreed to the language below. Vice chairs have differing skill sets, interests, and availability. We thought it would be best for the chair, in consultation with the vice chairs, to create the roles that best suited the vice chairs and the needs of the board. So Roberta does not want to have it spelled out. Mark says he agrees with Roberta's approach and the open framework Shelley shared. That's not really taking a position there, but I think the board is best served when its members find tasks and responsibilities that suit their interests and expertise, experience, skills. I would apply that same approach to vice chairs with the caveats that they should also be available for the advisory, counseling, and filling in roles Shelley outlined. I recognize that can result in vice chairs who perhaps are not as self-motivating and who would work better if given a direction, and as a result are seen as less active than others, but I still think it's to be preferred over assigned tasks that may or may not resonate with the vice chairs. I also underscore the advisory role of the executive committee. During my second tenure, I relied heavily on the great group that constituted the executive committee and was lucky to have their time and input. And then we've got 2 others. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to go to Michelle Parker next. It's about the vice chairs. And then from Barbara, because it's about the treasurer too. Michelle Parker says, I think there should be some delineation of duties for the vice chairs. I think this because there have been times in the past, sadly, that ideas from vice chairs with solid leadership, talent, and creative abilities were shelved by a chairperson who naively thought that vice chairs only acted at the behest of the chair. While this is true to some extent, it should not be interpreted to mean, quote, do nothing till you hear from me, unquote. Vice chairs should have the ability to initiate and lead projects by bringing their ideas to steering or full board for a discussion. Perhaps some board members think this is already one way to bring their own ideas to fruition or not, but I think there should be some independence for the vice chairs to bring their ideas to steering or full board. And this should be reflected in the bylaws. And Barbara said, thank you, Barbara, for weighing in. Having been the vice chair for 3 years running during my first iteration of the board, I was rarely called upon for anything, and the title seemed to be only a vice chair in waiting, pretty much a free ride, should the chair potentially not be available for a meeting. This year, unlike most others, the chair relied heavily on the advice of his executive board with Penny's departure and all that followed. However valuable that was to the chair, I do not think vice chairs should get the position without earning it in some way. But unless we create some positions for them offhand, I don't know what they might do. We would have to do something to bind something. And then you go on top of treasurer, and we'll get that in a minute. So let's just have a quick conversation about what we think about the vice chair role. So we've got varying views here.
Yeah.
Well, I agree generally with Roberta. First of all, the things about bringing ideas to the chair or the steering committee, anyone can do that. And if a vice chair has a particular project in mind or something, they can bring it to the steering committee. They can bring it to the chair for discussion or support. So I don't think we have to delineate. In fact, any member can do it to take it to its extreme. So I don't think we have to delineate it. I mean, other than the prescribed duties of a vice chair, when the chair is available, I think that it should stay the way it is. I think an attempt to start delineating specific duties of a vice chair, different vice chairs will have different strengths, different interests, different experiences, and it's up to the chair to hopefully, be, part of leadership means drawing the best out of your colleagues and staff and so forth, and hopefully that's what a chair will do. But I think it should be largely discretionary, other than the required substitute of the vice chair when the chair is available. So I wouldn't change it.
Okay, Barbara?
Yeah, pretty much agree with that. I think Shelley's comment about providing oversight to the DM is really off the wall.
No, to
Yeah.
assist in providing direction.
Yeah, well, what does that mean? I mean,
Direction
Well,
and
it-
oversight. I don't, in my experience, the vice chairs it's long been a popularity election rather than looking for people who are willing to work and provide some expertise in any way. So anything having to do with oversight of the district manager, I think that's crazy.
if we used our federal government as a model, every presidential candidate says how all the wonderful things that they're going to have their vice president do. And in the end, it largely depends on the individual. Historically, most of them have disappeared into obscurity, and some have taken on serious responsibilities. And it largely depends on the chair.
Mhm.
Let me go back to what it actually says right now, because I don't think that we're that far off, but I have a slightly different view on this, of course. Whoops. Okay, chairpersons. So what Beverly's responding to is that it says
Duties of the vice chair.
in the absence of the chairperson, preside at all board meetings. In the absence of both, the second vice chairperson shall preside. Assist the chairperson when necessary and as required. And in the event the chairperson office becomes vacant, serve as the interim chair. And all Shelley's doing is he's just filling in a couple things. He's saying, basically, he's reiterating the responsibilities of the chair to say that if the chair is not available, this person should preside at the meetings of the community board, should serve as a member of the district services cabinet, provide direction to, so it's just reiterating all the duties of the chairperson and saying that it's the vice chair's responsibility to fill in. And I think that would be a good thing, because it might seem like a popularity contest. I think I've seen that, Barbara, but in reality, as we saw when Mark Diller stepped down, the first and second vice chair are the people who need to fill in. It's a really important role. The same way that when Abraham Lincoln was shot, the vice president had to step up and become president. So I think it's important to have this in the bylaws that these are your responsibilities. And if you want to run for vice chair, you should be prepared to fill in and take those responsibilities on.
Absolutely.
Su-
But I also
Susan, if you,
Susan, sorry to interrupt. I have to actually quick take a call. I will be here, but I will be right back.
Thanks, Max.
Susan, the fact of the matter is that just by saying that first of all, in the case where somebody resigns, they're only going to be a chair for 2 months at most. And secondly, during that interim period when first of all, we might want to, since we have, well, I'll get back to that. My point is the duties of the chairperson become the duties of the vice chair during that interim period. They're already delineated.
Okay, great. Okay,
And so the other.
we'll leave it as it is. So we won't delineate it.
So the other thing is, in the absence of the chairperson and in the absence of both, in the event that chairperson, see, this says duties of the vice chair, but we have 2.
Vice chairpersons, thank you.
And in the last one, in the event the chairperson, should we say the first
Yeah.
vice chairperson shall serve?
Yeah.
Since we have 2.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Other than that, I would leave it the same.
I would change to say not only that assist the chairperson when necessary and required and as required, but when the chairperson assigned, based on what Jay said, I think this is again going back to in normal circumstances, the vice chair is not doing much of anything.
But I don't think that's a good thing.
You think it's a good thing?
I do not think it's a good thing. I think that's,
But
particularly.
again, it's a lot depends on the interests, experience.
But we don't say
desires of
that
the
at
vice.
all. I
Okay.
agree that it should be flexible, but we say nothing about that. We only say when necessary and as required.
So what's wrong with that?
It just seems too specific to me.
Well,
When called upon.
I don't.
Chairperson when called upon, not when necessary or, when assigned something. No?
It's the same argument.
Barbara, I understand what you're saying, and I wouldn't have a problem with adding a little. I understand what you're saying. This says necessary and as
Why don't we just take it,
required.
assist the chairperson? How about that?
No.
That's the only accurate way to put it, because it's the same argument as you have in the executive branch. And
How about something like?
the butt of a lot of humor. What about this vice president? He or she, they do nothing. Why do we even have a vice president, sort of thing? But when the president gets shot, then the vice president assumes every responsibility that the
Oh,
president.
we already have that. We already have that. We say
Right,
they.
Let's just leave
But
it.
what I'm getting at is you don't want to develop the description because it's not really necessary for the vice president.
The chairperson
I agree.
as
Barbara,
requested.
I
Okay,
think
guys, hold on. If you're going to interrupt each other, we're going to have to go back to raising your hand and being called on. So one person at a time, please.
Okay, I was just saying assist the chairperson as required. As called upon. As asked to step up or take on another role.
Okay, that's a little, I would go back to what it says and I would add something to the effect that assist the chairperson as necessary and required, and something to the effect as when at the chairperson's request, perform duties or something to the effect and perform duties which the chairperson determines would be in the best interests of the board.
Which is what it is, which is exactly what happens in the executive branch. You're here at my pleasure.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you have my pleasure and you'll do what I say. And if I like you, I'm going to give you important portfolio.
Exactly.
And if not, then, you're by the wayside.
So are we good with this? This is the chairperson when necessary and as requested.
Fine.
Jay,
Well, I think you should leave in required. And
As
just say
required
when
and as-
necessary,
Necessary, required, and as requested.
when necessary and required, or, yeah, fine. No, you can't, you got too many asses.
When necessary, comma,
And required,
required,
no,
and
assist the
as
chairperson when necessary and required. Take out the as. And as requested by the chair.
who else would request it, Jay?
What?
Who else would request it?
I might request it.
You can't do that. You have no standing.
Okay, but I might do it anyway.
Okay, we're gonna move on. Mr. Contrary, we're moving on. We got 6 minutes left. Okay, so we're through elections. Special elections we did. Excuse me. Committee and/or committee meeting procedure. Committee meetings shall be conducted under the same procedures as board meetings. However, committees may adopt additional procedures consistent with the board procedures in these bylaws. Okay, that's
Okay.
harmless. Executive committee.
My hand is raised. Where is it?
Okay, Jay.
So I sent you guys in February a memo about including standing committees in the bylaws and having a procedure for creating and eliminating them. And just briefly, my point was that in virtually every other organization, including the city council, the two branches of the state legislature, non-profit and for-profit corporations, boards of trustees,
Okay, we got it. Yeah.
standing committees are delineated in the bylaws, and we should have a procedure for adding or subtracting those committees.
Totally agreed. Let's put that on the agenda for next month. And can you send me that language so I can try to
I
insert it?
did. You have it. I emailed it to you on February 18th.
Okay, I'll dig it up. If I can't
If
find
you
it.
need, including the, I actually drafted a proposed amendment to the
Great.
bylaw.
Okay,
So-
I'll.
But we'll do it
edit
offline.
Can I just
Well-
say something?
Yeah,
Under 4C, I think it's a run-on sentence. I think it should be under the same procedures as board meetings, period. However, committees may adopt additional procedures.
agreed.
Okay, yeah. And also, throughout this section, or maybe you took them out because it's in my copy. I don't see them in yours now. I don't know what you call those, like, it looks like less than, those, those V things. Do you see any here?
Alright.
They're definitely in my copy. Oh, yeah, here's one under 4D, membership, all board officers, and then there's one of those,
Yeah, what?
those little,
Yeah.
So,
I don't know
what do you
why.
call them?
What does it say, Barbara? It says list of duties may vary.
No,
Under executive committee, one, membership, all board officers.
yeah, what are those little arrows?
What are those little things?
I'm sorry, I can't find where you are. Where are you? Executive session?
Executive committee, #1 membership,
Okay, which section?
4D.
One,
4D.
one membership,
Hold on.
all board officers, and then there's a caret.
Oh, yeah, I took that out.
No, well, it's still in there. It's in your copy. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't take it out. Okay. That.
Yeah.
Thank
And there's another one at the end of it also.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. I thought I got rid of them all. I was looking at the hard copy instead of the
Okay,
So the, where's the other one?
okay.
Okay, so membership, so we're on 4D now, right?
Okay.
All right.
Okay. All board officers shall be members of the executive committee. Actions. In the month where the full board does not meet, the executive committee shall transact any necessary business. If necessary, in an emergency situation, the executive committee may take necessary action on behalf of the board, but any actions taken under this provision shall be subject to approval by the full board at the next regularly scheduled board meeting. Approval by the full board. Any action by the executive committee is subject to review by the full board and must be approved by the full board at the next regularly scheduled meeting to be considered valid. If an executive committee action is not approved by the full board, the board will take steps to withdraw the action. Any comments, concerns? Plowing on. District manager and staff. The board shall appoint a district manager subject to the New York City Charter, Chapter 70, Section 2800F. The board may employ community assistants, consultants, and other professional staff. The district manager and any staff shall serve at the pleasure of the board. The board as a whole has the power to select and hire the district manager and any staff or consultants. It may assign the responsibilities of the selection of staff to the district manager or to a designee, subject to final approval by vote of the board. I'm a little concerned there that it might imply that we can hire the assistants, but I don't think it does. Any staff or consultants. I don't think we hire the district manager and the ADM, but we do not hire the rest of the staff. Is that correct, Max?
What? That we don't hire what?
We don't hire Jesse. We hire the district manager and the ADM, but we do not hire the rest of the staff.
No.
Who would then?
I
Yeah.
think the district manager would do it, wouldn't they?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, then this is okay. Okay,
Susan, maybe you can double check, maybe check with Stephen.
okay.
It says may assign the responsibilities of the selection
Yeah.
of the, oh, well, I see. Well, never mind.
I mean,
I
Jesse,
mean, I'll add this. I mean, even in my soon-to-be new capacity, I would feel uncomfortable making a decision on hiring solely by myself.
Okay, so then this is good. Okay,
That's just me.
okay. District manager. The district manager shall have have responsibility for processing service complaints, preside at meetings of the district service cabinet, and perform. There shouldn't be an and there.
No.
Perform such other duties as are assigned by the community board. The board should list to the largest extent possible the responsibilities they would like to. So do we have any other responsibilities we want to put there instead of just having that caveat? This is what you were talking about, Barbara, before.
Right.
I'm not sure we even need
I
that.
think, you know, overseeing the other members of the staff, for one thing.
Is that someplace else? No?
Well, it shouldn't be because this is where the duties of the district manager are.
Oversee the staff and assign the staff specific chores, duties.
Why don't we just say
assignments.
manage district staff?
Okay.
Let's say oversee.
You like oversee?
You want manage? Okay.
I don't care. Whatever you like.
If I may, I think that we want to include something in today's world with respect to managing communication, which includes electronic agility with electronic platforms and all of that sort of thing. So because this is where we are, and this is one of this particular district
don't we
manager.
just- I'm sorry, Robert, don't mean to.
Max,
So maybe we're going to say the same thing, Jay, but I think that now that we have someone with that skill, and that becomes a permanent feature in the job description of a district manager, the electronic capacity and the platforms and the social media platforms and all of that stuff that are elusive to a lot of people my age, that I think there should be a reference to that under the heading of communications.
How about,
And
Robert,
managing communications.
how about have responsibility for community outreach?
Well, that's a
That could-
different issue. If I may, under manage the district staff, and I think, Robert, and correct me if I'm
No,
wrong, I think your concern was more with, the operations of the office, the technical issues and so forth.
Yeah, I don't.
But
think
that's included in there. The
Yeah,
platforms
I
and all
think-
that stuff is
And
included. in there.
I think manage the district, we could just add manage the district staff and the operations of the district office.
Okay, okay,
I'm-
yeah.
You know, you don't want the district manager doing, social media during the day.
Right.
If he wants to assign that to somebody else, that, that's at his discretion, and if it's necessary or needed. But
Yeah,
I don't think we need that. And I
Okay.
don't think, responsibility for community outreach, I mean,
It's gone.
no.
Okay.
I agree with Barbara. I
Okay.
don't think that's really the district manager. And we've already said processing service complaints. You could add something like processing service complaints and inquiries or
Yeah,
something like that.
that's
Max,
better. Yeah.
you have input here?
Max,
I was going to say, I like the broader approach to it. That way it just gives more latitude for all the different things.
Yeah, and we still have to hire one more person on the staff, and
Yeah.
that person may have special skills that Max is looking for. If he feels that we need to outreach to the community, maybe that's a person that he'll choose for that particular role or whatever, but I think we hired him and we need to leave some of this up to him.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think,
Max, excuse me, continue.
operations of the office is broad enough
Me too,
to encompass that.
yeah.
Max, do you feel like this is a good summary of your responsibilities to be?
Yeah, I think so. As I said, I really like the broad approach because it's literally everything. From the other day, I was figuring out how to order cleaning supplies and doing it through the correct FMS process. So it's, it literally encompasses everything, small and large and in between. So yeah.
Okay. Are you responsible for managing the budget?
Yes, in coordination with, I've been working with Beverly on that.
So how would you describe that?
I think operations is broad enough.
I was going to say the budget and things that are kind of adjacent to that kind of should all fall into a broad category, maybe.
Of operations?
I think we're also.
Hey, wait. Can we just let Max talk,
Oh,
please?
I'm sorry. I
Please.
thought
Okay, please, let him
we
finish his
started
sentence.
talking at exactly the same time. Sorry.
Okay, please. Max,
No worries. Yeah, just general administration based tasks. I don't know quite how to articulate it, but I mean, I think managed
that.
district
that.
staff and operations at the district office encompasses plenty.
Why don't we just add why don't we just leave D and add administration to that? Manage the district staff and the administration and operations of the district office.
great.
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Can I say something now?
Yes,
Number C has a period, the others do not.
I'm gonna go back and fix it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and yeah, and I've now forgot what I was gonna say.
Okay. Okay,
Well, you had you put a period at the end of D just now.
I did.
Is that right? Is that what you want?
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, I put one.
Well, oh, you put it in all of them. Well, many of these don't have periods after them.
Well,
Or
most of them do, but if they don't, I'm gonna go back and put them in. And if you find any that don't, send me an email. with-
I know what I was gonna say, that I thought we were considering having an election for a treasurer also. And that would make a difference in terms of the oversight for financial, for budget and stuff like that.
So you want to say something about work with the treasurer?
No, I don't think we need to do that. If we elect a treasurer, the treasurer will have the duties of a treasurer.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
No,
I think it's
And we agreed to have a treasurer, so it's been added to the
Yeah.
list of.
I don't
officers.
think we have to, obviously, the
Right.
district manager and the treasurer will have to work together on the budget.
Okay. So bylaws reporting. Are you guys okay staying for like another 5 or 10 minutes so we can get through the rest of this? Because we're on page 18 of 19, and that way we can finish. And then next month we can just do a cleanup.
That works
Okay.
for me.
I
Okay,
think that'd be good. Thanks very much. Bylaws and reporting. On an annual basis, the chair must publish a report on the expenditures of the past fiscal year. The chair may enlist the district manager and board staff in the preparation of this report. Sounds good to me. Annual reporting. The board, in accordance with the New York City Charter, shall submit an annual report to the mayor, the council, and the borough board within 3 months of the end of each year. Prepare comprehensive and special purpose plans for the growth, improvement, and development of the community district. Submit an annual statement of needs, which includes a brief description of the district, the board's assessment of its current and probable future needs, and its recommendations for programs. It should be programs, projects, or activities to meet those needs. Submit to the mayor capital budget priorities for the next fiscal years and the 3 succeeding fiscal years. Submit to the mayor expense budget priorities for the next fiscal year. Submit recommendations and priorities to the mayor, the council, and the city planning commission on the allocation and use within the district of funds earmarked for community development activities. Any comments, grammatical errors?
No, it's fine.
Fine.
Okay, amendments to the bylaws. Proposed amendments to the bylaws may be introduced in 2 ways. Whoops, sorry. A little trigger happy on the cursors. Introduction by a board member at a regular monthly board meeting and a vote to put the proposed amendments on the agenda at the following regular board meeting, or through notice, written or email, by the borough president's office at least 30 days prior to a regular board meeting. The proposed amendments should be made after a careful consideration on the effects of the proposed amendments on the entirety of the bylaws, and a description of these effects should be included along with the proposed amendments 30 days prior. The proposed amendments after having been introduced
Yes.
at a prior meeting or through written notice will be voted on at a regular board meeting and shall require 2/3 majority of present and eligible voting members of the board. Should it say the next meeting or right here? Right here, the next.
Well, I don't know. Does it have to be the next?
Do we think we should do that? I think it says it up here.
A future, how about a future?
Well, if that's the case, we just leave it out.
The
Okay.
proposed amendment to have to have at a prior meeting or through written notice will be voted on at a regular board meeting.
I think we should say at the next. So it's not hanging out. Any proposed amendments shall take effect immediately. All efforts should be made or shall be made, Jay? Shall
Shall.
be made to make the previous bylaws and the proposed amendments available to board members and the public through the community board website. That's kind of weird. I don't think it should be all efforts should be made. I think it should be that the new bylaws should be posted to the community board website.
Right, agreed.
Well, this says the previous bylaws.
I don't think we should have the previous bylaws. It should just be
No.
the revised bylaws.
Well, all right, how about then the proposed bylaws?
Well, this is, it's saying like, okay, we voted on it. They're going to take effect immediately. The revised bylaws.
Mhm.
Must be.
Why don't we just say the bylaws shall be made public?
Yeah, right.
Once they're adopted, they're the bylaws. It takes effect immediately.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would take out must and put in shall,
Thank you.
just better usage,
Yeah.
consistent usage.
Okay.
That's
Wow.
it.
Susan,
That's it.
just
Yes,
one,
Barbara.
one thing before I forget, the comments that you got from board members
Yep.
regarding a few things. I had written something about I had done a search to see, and I went through all.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and
thank you.
I
I'll
don't
go
remember
back.
how many
I'll go back.
boards had a treasurer and how many did not, but I think that notes what it was.
Thank you.
Just
Yes.
read that again. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Barbara, for reminding me. I'm sorry about that.
Did you forward the comments you got from board members to us?
No,
I will do that. On another note, after our last
Okay.
meeting, I decided, this is from Barbara, I decided to research how many boards have treasurers and how many do not. Interestingly, with the exception of ours and Board 8, they all have treasurers. I would be in favor of adding this position. Otherwise, there's no one watching the store. I've combined below the duties of the treasurers from 12 CBs from their bylaws. I think, is this not what's in there already, Barbara?
What? What?
Um,
Yeah, well,
And the-
there,
and the-
there's what I was saying
Duties entail.
about a treasurer working with the district manager, so it's,
Yeah, the Manhattan Borough President has got a list of duties. And it's a little less specific than this. Let me read Barbara's aloud, and then I'll go back to the borough presidents, if that's okay. Participating in all fiscal matters pertaining to the board's operating budget, along with the district manager, presenting to the board annual reports of current allocations, prorated expenditures, and proposed operating budgets, monitor any grants from elected officials or grants received, being a signatory on the board's checking impress account, along with any two, chair of the board, first vice chair, treasurer, secretary, oversee any fundraising the board might do. In my day, we had T-shirts and once embarked on a cookbook, oh my goodness, with recipes submitted by prominent locals to raise money for board member events. So let me go back to the borough president's version.
what's an checking impress? What is that?
It's a checking account. I looked that up. I didn't know either.
Okay.
Okay.
Also, do we really, if we're gonna have a treasurer, do we really need 3 signatures? The treasurer, the chair, and a vice chair? on every
No,
check?
but it should be 2. Should be 2.
2 is fine. Typically, that's what you do.
Two.
I mean, look, between Penny and John in the last couple of years, who knows whether money was taken out of the account?
Okay, that's not appropriate.
No,
Okay.
I mean,
Barbara,
it is
please.
appropriate.
No, please, please. Okay, so the duties right now are administer the financial affairs of the community board in consultation with the district manager under the supervision of the chairperson and as prescribed by the community board. Number 2, provide an annual community board budget and such periodic modifications as requested by the elected board officers. Report in writing to elected board officers quarterly on the financial condition of the community board, including expenditures, monies owed, cash on hand, or available, and projections of future commitments. I think this is great. I think it's less specific and it's more in keeping with the other descriptions.
I mean, this becomes a real job, just so it should be made clear that, if you're talking about the day-to-day managing of the budget with the district manager, you're talking about providing an annual budget, modifying it, quarterly reports. This is not, baloney here. Whoever does this or stands as a candidate for this has to understand that this is like real work.
Max, can I ask you, what was it like at CBA? Because I know that CBA did not have one, so never mind.
That's the only other one.
Yeah, okay. Do you know anything about this role or how it's done in other boards?
Not at other boards, no. I don't, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, can you talk to us a bit about what's going on right now with the finances of the office?
Yeah, so Beverly's been really helpful, and that's especially because she worked at OMB. But I think that she kind of wanted me. She was the one that mentioned that we should have a treasurer position, actually, to me, and I think she would like to fill that role. And I would certainly welcome that help too. I do have experience with budgets and I've been working with it, but largely I've been the one doing all the fact finding. And in part, it has to be someone on staff, not a board member, because it requires credentials to get into the FMS system. So what I'm doing is tracking what all the expenses of the last year were and what some of these invoices were that we just don't have information on because of inadequate record keeping or things slipping through the cracks, whatever it was. Nope, not pointing fingers. So I'm doing that, and then I'm kind of forecasting what we have in our just under the last quarter, and starting to plan for, okay, what's left over. And then I'm working with Jesse to kind of develop, all right, well, if we have this much left over, what are things we can kind of get ahead of the curve and buy on? And then from there, we're forecasting what next year is going to look like, because we don't have to date yet a picture of what a normal month looks like in terms of spending for the board. And we haven't had that in a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why don't I do this, if you guys are okay with it? Why don't I get offline, reach out to Beverly, because as you said, Max, this was her suggestion. I think it's a great one. I love that she's got in here quarterly, because we had talked about that at the last meeting, that it might be, or 2 meetings ago, that it might be onerous to do this every month and unnecessary. But let me touch base with Beverly and see how she feels about this description, particularly if Max, as you say, she's interested in the role.
Yeah. I think-
Does it make sense for you to reach out to any of the community boards that have treasurers and have a brief discussion?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Actually, I can do that. Susan, you have the list of which ones, correct?
Yeah, and I want to say, Barbara, thank you for compiling that. I did the same thing, so we can provide that information to you, who's got one and who doesn't.
Yeah, maybe we can get.
All of
some-
them, with the exception of 2, 7 and 8, the Manhattan.
So we should be able to get some interesting guidance.
I mean, 9, I think 9 is really well run, but you might have your opinions on, which other ones are well run. It varies from time to time. 1 is pretty well run too.
Yeah, yeah.
They're all
that-
well run, but you might have connections at particular boards.
Okay,
Yeah.
Max,
good.
what's the area of 8?
Basically just mirror image across the park. Yeah,
Yeah.
50, 57, whichever it is, all the way up to almost the top of the park.
Right.
Okay, so the things, just to wrap up.
Oh, and Roosevelt Island. I always
Huh.
shouldn't forget about
Yeah.
that too. Yeah.
Okay, so to wrap up, we're gonna follow up. I'm gonna find a place to input, insert meeting minutes, Barbara. Gonna take a look at resolutions. I'm gonna look for Jay's information on affiliations. I'll work with Max on the timing for the elections. Jay, I'll find your information on standing committees from.
yeah,
the
if you
18th.
can't find it, I'll resend it.
Great, okay.
And I'm going to send you the 2 things that I prepared on minutes for
Okay.
distribution.
That's great, thank you.
Okay.
And then next month, what we'll do is a final wrap up of, what I would urge folks to do if you have, it's a rainy day, today's a great day for this. Do what Barbara did, go back and look through all the other bylaws and see if there's anything else you think is great that we should adapt and throw in here. And then if you could send that to me before the next meeting, I can incorporate a list, put together a list, we can review them quickly. And then what we'll do is we'll plan our next meeting, we'll largely plan our strategy for how we present this to the board. So if it's March right now, I would think that ideally we could have this sewn up by May.
Okay,
Sounds good.
Okay.
very good.
Thank you to our one non-task force member for attending. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that. Have a great day, everyone.